I'm Suzanne Gardinier, and I teach poetry at Sarah Lawrence, and this is my Donnie, Rickey McGhee, who's a junior here and studies literature and poetry.
I did come here intending to study poetry and literature, and I've pretty much stuck to that, but I would say that my interests inside of that have expanded. One of my first courses was African American literature, which I'm still focusing on, but now it's with like a more queer slant, so LGBT studies, so it kind of got more specified as I continue going. So, but definitely I came here to study writing and just to learn how to read and write. I keep saying that. That's what I came here to learn to read and write, and I feel like I've learned to read and write.
So you're a junior now. Do you feel like the ways that you're learning to read and write are different than they were when you first started?
Yes.
How so?
Just interrogating, not necessarily people, but just books. Like I think I felt like I was a passive reader before. Now I'm an active reader, which I think is important if you want to be a writer, because you need to know how these people did this.
Yeah. Did you like the structure the first year? I mean, we met for half an hour, just us, once a week, and then we met twice a week in class as well. So it's very intensive immersion.
Yeah, I'm kind of spoiled by that. Like
yes,
every year
me
after
too,
that,
as a teacher.
I wanted that. Like the poetry classes I've taken after that have met for like 2 hours once a week, which is still not enough. I feel like I want to be in the class twice a week, and then also meeting every week, which is your Don, who happens to be, a poet, is in the field. This is like really valuable information.
I like it as a teacher too, I have to say. When I describe it to colleagues who teach other places, they gasp at how much time that is. But if what you really want to do is teach, there's nothing like it. It's great.
And I couldn't imagine, and I came to study writing, as I said, I couldn't imagine not starting that way. Having someone who every week reads your poem and just can comment on that poem particularly, and then poems you've written before, and you can start to see connections between that, which are often blind, to me at least. I don't know connections until someone tells me. So.
The first thing I think of when I think of the poems you wrote that first year is the Emmett Till stuff. And it feels like at the beginning, the power of what you do now was there, but it was a little more hidden. It felt like it was more of a dialogue between you and you than a dialogue between your soul and everybody else's. So what I watched you do over that first year, and you're still doing it, is uncovering that. So it's just as intimate, but it's a communication and not just between you and you. And you were great in the class in terms of interacting with other people about their stuff. You were serious, and you made other people be serious around you. Not serious like solemn, serious like, if we're going to do this, let's do it, So that was a great thing. Do you think that writing can be taught? Do you think that somebody can teach somebody to write?
It's interesting, people say that about writing, but I don't feel like they say the same about music. Or, people spend years. I was in the band for 5 years, like learning how to play. I played the xylophone, and like no one was like, "But you're born a xylophone." It's like, oh, I was taught,
I didn't know that. They played the xylophone.
The way I played wasn't taught, but I was taught the mechanics of it, and I think that same can be translated for writing. You can be taught how, the constructions, but not necessarily what to write. That's for, I guess, the poet to find for themselves. My first year I took 3 year-long classes. One was my first year study. The other was beginning Italian. The third was African American literature. For my second year, I decided I wanted to kind of break that up and take some semester-based classes.
In terms of what you're taking, you've always been pretty self-possessed and determined. So I found that mostly I've asked you questions just to say, well, did you think about this and what about this? And as opposed to marking out any path.
Right now I'm looking into research about graduate schools and MFA versus PhD, et cetera, and I get a lot of opinions from my professors, and a lot of these professors know people at other places, so they're like suggesting people like, I think you would work well with this person, and then I get, a week later like, well, I actually talked to this person and they're interested, and so I think those intimate relationships you have with your professors and with your Don especially will really help you in those matters.
Yeah, that's true. What's challenging about Sarah Lawrence?
Well, the gift and curse of it is that it's writing intensive. You learn how to read and write, as I've been saying, and you learn how to organize your time so that you can produce, whether it be a chapbook or a 30-page paper, whatever, The curse of that is that you have to produce those things. It's not like you can wait to the last week and just cram and study for a test and be good, fail it or pass or whatever. You really have to organize your time over the semester to do that. And there are times when it's just like, well, I don't, you have those times where you don't want to do anything. So that could be a challenge as well. But that's a time when you go to the professors that you're meeting them every other week, or you're done, and then you can talk about those things. So
Right.
I think all the challenges at Sarah Lawrence are like balanced with something to help you.
To me, I guess the conference system and Donning are connected in that way of assuming that learning is related to connecting to another human being, not taking a bunch of discrete information and putting it before people that way. Particularly if you're teaching writing, I mean, to be able to sit with someone with their draft and both look at it and say, well, read this to me. Like, how does that sound to you and why does it sound that way? And as much as I love poetry, I think really I love learning the most of all. But I don't think there's any other place like this that is based on that and really protects it and enables it. It's not that you can't do that at other places, but you do it on your own. And here, it's part of the ethos of the college, which is lovely and rare.
I have to start at the moment of the storm. At the moment of the storm, I couldn't write anything.
How old were you?
I was a junior in high school. After that, I attempted to write things about New Orleans, but I think I was coming at it too directly, and it felt sentimental. It felt not real, And so that's why I actually picked the topic of Emmett Till in your first class, because I needed something just as traumatic and tragic, and I needed to work out, but in a different way that I can get to the trauma that happened in my life. Yeah. So it's been a few years now, and I feel like I'm coming to a point. I don't say I'm really writing about Hurricane Katrina. I'm really writing about storms and ideas of natural disasters and putting that in relation to unnatural disasters like homosexuality. Because for some reason, I feel like there's a really big connection. And that's what's driving the poem for me. I feel like there's a connection. So that's what the project right now is. It's about, it's really, I write poetry to try to figure things out.
No one makes a living writing poems, even the most popular poets of a time. So people can detach those two things and see that it's important in other ways. In terms of my teaching, I don't think there's anything that I ever focus on that isn't applicable to a lot of other things that you can pay the rent with, that you can earn a living at. And some of them are writing connected, but just those ways of thinking clearly and of questioning. I think of teaching always, part of what's fascinating to me is that it's always a democracy experiment, to have a room full of 15 people and to figure out how people are going to get along and not get along, and how we're going to talk to each other, how we're not going to just go through the forms, how we're going to do something real. So those skills that a citizen needs, not just someone who's going to pay the rent. For me as a parent, that's what I would want my kid to get in terms of an education, so that at the end of 4 years, my kid would feel like they could make their way in the world. And you can't predict what form that's going to take, but if they can question the things people tell them and navigate them on their own terms, then they're in good shape, I think.